She grew absolutely ashamed of herself. Of neither Darcy nor Wickham could she think, without feeling that she had been blind, partial, prejudiced. It's a very exciting day for the museum because we're having a continuous reading of Pride and Prejudice, which novel celebrates its 200th anniversary of publication this year. The novel was revised and published from this house, and so it's particularly appropriate that we do this in this special year.
My dear sir, I feel myself called upon by our relationship and my situation in life to condole with you on the grievous affliction you are now suffering under. She is the funniest writer. I mean, that's one of the things about Pride and Prejudice. There's certain aspects to it which are really absolutely hilarious. Mr. Collins is extremely funny. I just read Mr. Collins' proposal to Elizabeth. And he is hilarious. I think actually the more hilarious bit comes into the book later, where he writes a letter of condolence to the Bennet family about Lydia's elopement. So Lydia has completely disgraced the family, and he writes a letter of condolence, and Mr. Collins, he just says everything in this letter of condolence that you don't say. Everything that you think about somebody else's disgrace, but you just would never say. But Mr. Collins goes ahead and says it all. No arguments shall be wanting on my part that can alleviate so severe a misfortune, or that may comfort you under a circumstance that must be of all others most afflicting to a parent's mind. The death of your daughter would have been a blessing in comparison of this. And it is the more to be lamented, because there is reason to suppose, as my dear Charlotte informs me, that this licentiousness of behaviour in your daughter has proceeded from a faulty degree of indulgence. Though at the same time, for the consolation of yourself and Mrs. Bennet, I am inclined to think that her own disposition must be naturally bad.
Something that's sometimes overlooked is the relationship between Elizabeth and her father. Interesting that Mr. Bennet had views reasonably unusual, I would have thought, for some parents, that he didn't want Elizabeth to marry just anybody. Hence his attitude towards the proposal of Mr. Collins, where he thought that if she did marry Mr. Collins, or rather if she didn't marry Mr. Collins, her mother would never speak to her again, and if she did, he wouldn't.
Do not consider me now as an elegant female intending to plague you, but as a rational creature speaking the truth from her heart. You are uniformly charming, cried he with an air of awkward gallantry, and I am persuaded that when sanctioned by the express authority of both your excellent parents, my proposals will not fail of being acceptable. To such perseverance and wilful self-deception, Elizabeth would make no reply, and immediately, and in silence, withdrew, determined, if he persisted in considering her repeated refusals as flattering encouragement, to apply to her father, whose negative might be uttered in such a manner as must be decisive, and whose behaviour at least could not be mistaken for the affectation and coquetry of an elegant female.
Well, the more you learn about her life, the more you can see little snippets reflected, particularly in Pride and Prejudice. But it seems so very similar to real life. As you say, her father losing his income when he lost the living, and obviously I'm just amazed to see how much of their belongings were sold.
It's the proposal from Mr. Darcy to Elizabeth, but I like it because it's the first proposal and the way she so soundly rejects him, and I think that he was so sure in himself that he figured she would feel so honored by his proposal, and I just love, especially given the time, that she wasn't a woman who would simper and kind of shrink down and accept a proposal from this great man. She stood true to her feelings and her opinions, and she wasn't afraid to share them, and I had a lot of respect for her, and It makes the next proposal that much more endearing. Of several minutes, he came towards her in an agitated manner, and thus began. In vain I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. Elizabeth's astonishment was beyond expression. She stared, colored, doubted, and was silent. This he considered sufficient should be felt, and if I could feel gratitude, I would now thank you, but I cannot. I have never desired your good opinion, and you have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly. Mr. Darcy, who was leaning against the mantelpiece with his eyes fixed on her face, seemed to catch her words with no less resentment than surprise. His complexion became pale with anger, and the disturbance of his mind was visible in every feature. You must choose to tell me that you liked me against your will, against your reason, and even against your character. Was not this some excuse for incivility if I was incivil?
My name is Sue Hodder. I am the current town mayor of Austen. I was asked by Martin Dell, who's one of the local trustees, if I'd like to be involved in the reading relay of Pride and Prejudice today. And I was absolutely delighted to accept, and I've had the honour of reading chapter 32 this afternoon. Chapter 32. Elizabeth was sitting by herself the next morning and writing to Jane, while Mrs. Collins and Maria were gone on business into the village. It's just an amazing story, and it's of that era and that period, and the costume and just the love, everything about it, everyday life.
We started at 7 o'clock this morning, and we're aiming to finish at about 10:30 this evening, and so far we've been going through without a break and without a hitch. We began in the dining parlour where the book was written, and at the moment various visitors are sitting in the learning centre hearing the latest chapter from the book. It's significant because it is the book that everybody thinks of when they think of Jane Austen. If people have read or know nothing else about her, they know about Pride and Prejudice. And ever since it was written, it's been the most popular of her novels, and that remains so to this day. Now we tend to confuse that with, the popularity of Mr. Darcy's wet shirt, etc., and I'm sure that had an effect. But it was always the most popular, probably because of those two wonderfully enduring characters. It's just been a terrific day today, actually. There's just a wonderful feeling about it, and we all just feel very honoured and privileged that we get the chance to read this book in the very house that it was written, and it just seems like a very historic occasion.